You might end up finding yourself relating to this idea of finding almost every single game you play boring or just simply a waste of time. You don't have any goals you want to hit and you have nothing catching your eye in your downtime, which might lead to you quitting games altogether and just generally having a pessimistic view of games. And this is exactly what happened to me. At one point I decided to completely quit the hobby I had grown up doing my entire life. Really, it was the main hobby that I had ever since I was a kid, going all the way through school to now. Obviously, I'd gone through phases in my life where I'd stopped playing games for a bit, but it was never longer for a month, and that longest month for me was literally when I got my first job, and I ended up just doing that because I was trying to balance working full-time and as well going to college at the same time, and it was a massively hard thing to do and it took up all my time and I was just exhausted. However, around March of 2019, I got rid of games altogether out of my life. And if I'm honest, everything felt a lot better. I wasn't spending all my time in an artificial world. I would go out for walks, meet my friends and talk face to face and not over Discord. I was working my full-time job, but by this point I was starting to feel as if I was actually enjoying my life again. And then after a period of time I found myself just not enjoying what I was doing in my day-to-day. I wouldn't have enough energy from coming home from work, so even though I was doing full-time, technically doing 5 days a week, I was doing more like 10 to 12 hour shifts. So I was doing everything and using all my energy and I had nothing to do on the weekends because I would just sleep instead. Which eventually led to me playing games once again later on that year. This was overall a good thing as it started to make me talk to some of my friends that I hadn't spoken to in ages because I only knew them through the internet, and one of them was my friend Josh, where we ended up booking a trip to go to New York. And during this time I effectively was playing games with him, a few other friends, and basically just having a good time. We jumped back into Destiny, played more of that, and then eventually went off to New York in the beginning of 2020. However, this one feeling just kept staying around, and it's something that I have felt for quite a while, and if I'm honest, I would say it's been there since I was about 16, which is the feeling as if I was wasting my time. Simply viewing it as nothing more than I'm sitting in front of a screen doing nothing more than play a game. I'm not actually enjoying the majority of my time, but moments within the hour would keep me going. This is something that, to be honest, I would link together pretty well with something like TikTok. It's something that a lot of us are watching all the time, and most of the time we're not even enjoying most of the content we're seeing, and it's always that like 1% of content that we're seeing that keeps us just addicted to the platform. This is something that I do think at large is a really hard thing to get rid of, as once that sort of opinion starts setting in, it's really hard to get rid of. But this is something that I still feel to this day, but I've learned ways to try and quell this issue. Based off of some of the comments I've had when discussing this topic in the past, has either told me to completely drop this hobby entirely and basically saying that because I don't enjoy parts of it or I don't enjoy most of it, I should just get rid of the whole thing and not try playing any games. And then the other side of it, of people just telling me that I'm completely wrong and that because they can play games all day, every day, that, you know, that basically just means that my thought process on a lot of this just doesn't matter. But this is something that happens to many people, and I noticed it based off the comments that I got in many different videos discussing this exact topic. And in my opinion, I've ended up finding it just be more rooted to this idea of wanting to be productive more than anything, and I decided that instead of finding ways to get rid of it and stop playing games, I found manners to effectively include it into my productivity system. Now, this is something that happens to many people out there, and in a way it kind of feels sad as it's a hobby that I grew up with and I don't really want to lose it for the sake of what others might call a productive time. Now, another reason why I just don't play games as much anymore is just the lack of interest of new games coming out. I try not to be as cynical as I can be about a lot of new games, however I do end up feeling it quite often just because of the collective amount we've been burnt from games like Cyberpunk, the whole franchise of Assassin's Creed, and even if you look at Pokemon for example, nothing has really changed too much over the last few years. I just end up being put off of wanting to get myself hyped, and in a way I would say it's the gaming equivalent of not opening up to people because you don't want to be hurt. So by not giving into the hype, effectively, I can't be disappointed, or at least that's how I've ended up thinking in the past. However, I do think the best way of going about this is actually allowing yourself to be somewhat hyped up for a release, but allowing some form of rationality to creep in at least. At least admitting that, for example, you can be excited for the new Assassin's Creed Mirage for what it could be, however, really thinking to yourself about what Ubisoft are as a company and trying to quell the expectations a little bit and say, I'm excited for the possibility of what could come, however, I might not be expecting it to necessarily be what they give us. However, most of the time I don't end up dealing with this too much, primarily because I'm not buying most of the games that I get on release date anymore. Most of the time I'm waiting for a lot of reviews from people that I actually like the content of before I'm turning around and saying, you know what, take my 50, 60 or 70 pounds for this game's release. But like I said, some of the ways I've dealt with these two primary issues, one is just having a slightly more optimistic outlook and not letting myself just become delusional with optimism, but also not allowing cynicism to completely take over. And another one is my interest in games. Overall, I don't really let myself get too interested into many games. The only ones that I'm truly interested in this year, for example, is Jedi Survivor, the new Spider-Man game, and as well as that, Starfield, as that's a game that I'm really interested to see the outcome of more than anything. And then the only other games outside of those, because that's my this year's thoughts, but overall outside and extending outwards, it would be GTA 6 and Elder Scrolls 6. I think those are pretty safe bets to basically say that a lot of people will be intrigued to see what happens with. But I'm not letting it all consume me and become the only thing I want to talk about with people, because I do think that's another issue, is that a lot of people kind of end up attaching their entire personality to games, and because of that, they think that if they consider not playing them for a bit, or let's say they consider quitting entirely, they think that their entire personality is about to go in the bin purely because they have nothing else to offer outside of their gaming takes. However, for myself, the way that I've got around this is basically tapping into my productivity loophole, which is effectively saying that I have this channel. I've discussed this previously, but pretty much this channel allows me to play some games that I want to talk about in the more in-depth video essays, and it allows me to loophole myself so I can play a game without feeling as if I'm wasting my time, because I'm getting something tangible out of it in the end. I'm getting a video out of it. When I played through Red Dead 2, it was a game that I was never going to play. I had it on my shelf since day of release, and I tried playing it once when I was ill. It then turned out to be one of my favourite games I've ever played, and I know for a fact that if I didn't have this YouTube channel, I never would have given the game another shot. But because I do, I ended up playing it all the way through, and I didn't actually find myself hating the experience. I enjoyed it. I also knew for a fact that I was going to be making a massive video out of it. So all in all, it got over that loophole that I needed it to. It got over the idea of I need to be insanely productive all the time. It gave me a time out to be relaxed, enjoy the process of playing the game, knowing that at least I am playing it, I'm enjoying the process, however I'm getting something out at the end of it. I do think that there is one other thing that does come into play here, and that is growing up. Now, it's not that I necessarily think gaming in itself is juvenile. I do think, though, that it becomes juvenile once you allow it to take over pretty much all aspects of your life. This is something that I would say for a long time actually happened to me. Overall, I pretty much neglected most of everything to do with school for playing games. I played games all the time, and then I pretty much ended up finding just no reason to go out, do things. I neglected my fitness. I ended up not doing things like journaling or just being social, going outside more often, because I was exploring in virtual worlds instead of, living my own. Basically, I was letting games consume me, which is something that as a kid you can get away with because realistically you have nothing that you're really striving for. Maybe there's some things that your parents want you to go do, or maybe you're a rare kid that actually cares massively about the grades they get. However, there was nothing really out there that was telling you to basically say stop playing games, because if you're playing them too much, it's affecting you way too much, and overall it's not good for you to be playing them all the time. However, over time, this did end up changing, and I ended up wanting to actually go out and do things and improve myself in those aspects that I mentioned. Ever since I slowed down on the amount of games that I was playing, I can definitely say that I am a lot happier than I was. But not necessarily because I slowed down on games, more that it actually allowed me to access other things in my life that I kept neglecting. Like I mentioned, with things like journaling, my fitness, and just going out, doing things more actively, pursuing things that I want to pursue, for example, this YouTube channel, other channels that I've got, other businesses, all these different things, like actually pursuing more things outside of just playing games. So it wasn't all because I think the current state of the gaming market is just not as fun as it felt or used to be when I was younger, but simply it's more down to the fact that there's more things in life that I think you end up finding more enjoyment from eventually, especially if you've grown up playing games a lot outside of it, because it's one of those things that you can always go back to. You can always go back and play games at any point. However, you can't go back and do many different things in life, so you might as well go and enjoy those things at the same time, instead of effectively wasting away your life and only playing games. Maybe one day the desire to sit there, play a game all day, every day, will be something that doesn't make me feel awful about myself, but if I'm honest, I don't want that to happen. I feel way better not playing games all the time with my friends, when I can actually, go out and do social things with them, go out for a walk instead and actually talk to them face to face, instead of, like I said earlier over Discord. Gaming itself isn't bad, but too much of it definitely is. I do want to make a video in the future discussing this topic in a video essay talking about gaming addiction and how I actually do think a lot of people deal with it. It's just one of those addictions that's kind of accepted and fine, and especially in the space of games, I think a lot of people don't like to admit that, you know, playing games for hours upon hours every single day isn't an addiction. I do think that there is a very questionable thing of the fact that we kind of are fine with the idea that cool, playing for 4 hours every single day is perfectly fine. It's something that, you know, I think it's fine every now and again. If let's say for like 3 weeks you're playing 4 hours a day of this game that's just released, and then you go like 4 months with hardly playing or playing like an hour a day, that's a bit more acceptable in my opinion, and it's not an addiction. But if, for example, you are going into the same games every single day for the same hits of dopamine effectively that you're wanting to get, and you're not even enjoying it half the time, you're just simply playing it and idly looking at your screen wishing that you were doing other things, and you wish that you could go do other stuff. I want to make a video at some point, however I want to take my time with that video, as I do think it will be something that will take a lot of effort in doing in the right way, as I don't want to talk about it and basically be told gaming addiction isn't real and gaming addiction at large isn't real. I want to at least come to it with forms of evidence that can back up what I'm talking about, but also just general thoughts that I think can at least be understood a lot better. And one of the reasons why I do end up calling it more of an addiction is I think a lot of people connect with it on an emotional level, and they use gaming as a way to cope with life, the struggles you may find yourself in, and pretty much view games as the way to fix a lot of your issues. And instead of facing a lot of things that you might do, you'll sit there and comfortably play your game instead. Maybe instead of playing the game, talk to someone else and actually discuss what is going wrong. Then go play the game if you want to. But overall, I think that there is a lot of people who do have an emotional connection to games and don't believe that they are addicted, when in reality, there is a possibility. If you were to ask yourself, maybe ask other people, just stop playing a game for a month. Stop playing games for that entire time period. See what happens. A lot of people, and I've done this in my own life many times, the amount of people when you ask them the question of, do you think you could actually go a month without games, and would you? They instantly reply with, yeah, I could do it, I just don't want to. That is literally what every single addict says on the face of the earth. If they say that, just say to them, okay, cool, how about both of us go an entire month without doing it? Because again, I've done this with a load of my friends. They all say the same thing, which is, I don't really see the point in it, what's the point? And a lot of it is because a lot of people feel like they're going to lose a lot of their social connection when they stop playing games. They view it as a communal thing. When in reality, again, take that time, maybe give yourself a little break from it. Give yourself some form of break, and, you know, do it as a way to find out if you can actually deal with it. See if it is an addiction for you. Maybe see if there's other things out there that you want to be spending your time doing, and then you can go back into games. All you do is you lose a month of playing games. That's it. Nothing more. And it's not exactly like that month would have changed anything particularly because you're playing games, unless let's say you're a pro gamer. That's about it. One thing that I will just, you know, compare this to is that we all kind of agree collectively that social media is designed to hook us in, keep us there for money, effectively. And we view it and we kind of just take that assumption and we all agree with it. But we then think it's an insane way of thinking when talking about games. It's something that I do think needs to be talked about more. It's just a topic that people don't like to discuss, especially in games, because I've made, probably outside of my Is Gaming Dying video, where I wouldn't really say I went down this line of route of just basically saying people are addicted, but in another video which I've talked about in the past about gaming addiction, roughly in just a slapstick term, I would overall say that I was received as basically being told, you are dumb for thinking that people at large are actually addicted to games. I want to bring that video forward and let me know if that's something that does interest you. And then I want to make it in a way that's actually in a productive manner of a discussion. So yeah, let me know in the comments section down below if you do actually think that gaming addiction is something that is true. If, for example, you stopping playing games for a bit has ever actually helped you. And overall, if you play games more now, less than you did when you were younger, who knows? Let me know down in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.